They'll say they want freedom. They'll say they need space. But underneath those words is not freedom. It's fear. Because for the avoidant, distance feels like safety, and closeness feels like danger. Not because they don't care, not because they don't feel, but because somewhere in their nervous system, love got wired to mean risk. The root of the confusion. They never set out to hate closeness. They were taught to fear it. They learned, don't need too much. Don't feel too loudly. Don't expect closeness. It only ends in pain. So silence became survival. Shutting down became instinct. Walls became the only safe place to breathe. But here's the part most people don't see. Silence isn't empty for the avoidant. It's heavy. It's a prison. It hums with the echoes of everything they never said. They grew up believing walls meant safety. Distance meant protection. Aloneness meant control. So when love comes, their body whispers, danger. Don't trust this. Stay free. But freedom, for them, doesn't mean what it means for you. It doesn't mean choice. It doesn't mean expansion. It doesn't mean joy. Freedom became their shield, but not freedom in the true sense. Freedom became distance. Freedom became withdrawal. Freedom became another word for fear. And so, when you reach for them, they pull away. When you speak your heart, they go silent. When you offer love, they feel smothered. Not because love is wrong, but because love feels unsafe. To the avoidant, love is a double-edged sword. It awakens a hunger they've buried, but it also awakens the terror of losing it. So they retreat, not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. They convince themselves, I'm safer alone. No one can hurt me here. If I stay free, I can't be trapped. But loneliness creeps in, even in their freedom, even in their silence, even behind their strongest walls. Because distance keeps out love, but it also keeps out peace. The avoidant confuses survival with freedom. They confuse numbing with safety. They confuse walls with strength. But here's the truth. Real freedom doesn't come from walls. It comes from trust. It comes from vulnerability. It comes from knowing someone will stay, even when you fall apart. The avoidant doesn't know that yet. Their body has never felt it. Their nervous system has never believed it. So freedom, to them, still looks like withdrawal, still feels like silence, still means running before they're left. It isn't that they want to hurt you. It isn't that they don't care. It's that care feels dangerous. Love feels like fire, and they only know how to put out flames. But deep inside, they long for a different kind of freedom. A freedom where closeness doesn't scare them, where love doesn't feel like a trap, where safety is not in distance, but in being truly seen. And that is the hidden root of their confusion. They've mistaken their cage for freedom. They've mistaken their fear for safety. They've mistaken survival for living. Because to them, running feels like freedom, but it's only running from themselves. And until they face that, they will always confuse the two. The illusion of safety and distance. They tell themselves, I'm okay. I don't need anyone. I'm free. But listen closely. Their freedom is a mask, a disguise, a fragile illusion built on fear. They've mistaken emptiness for space. They've mistaken walls for boundaries. They've mistaken escape for strength. And when you stand in front of them, with love in your eyes, with warmth in your voice, with an open heart, they feel cornered. Not because you've trapped them, but because their body believes love is the trap. So they run, or they freeze, or they laugh it off and change the subject. Anything, to keep the illusion intact. Because if they stop running, they'll have to feel. If they stop pretending, they'll have to remember. If they stop withdrawing, they'll have to face the ache inside. And that ache is unbearable. It's the wound of not being seen, not being soothed, not being safe in the arms that should have been safe. So now, when you reach for them, they hear the echo of every past disappointment. They hear, "Don't trust it. It won't last. You'll only get hurt again." And distance feels like relief. For a moment. Because distance is quiet. Distance is controlled. Distance is predictable. But it's also lonely. So lonely that it gnaws at them in the dark. So lonely that it leaks out in their restless scrolling, their distracted conversations, their inability to sit with silence. They call this freedom. But what kind of freedom needs constant running? What kind of safety leaves you sleepless? What kind of strength makes you afraid of love? That's not freedom. That's fear in disguise. And here's the twist. The avoidant knows this. Somewhere deep inside, they know. They feel the hollowness in their chest. They notice the sting of your absence. They hear their own lies echoing back at them. But admitting it feels impossible. Because if they admit it, they'll have to face how much they've lost, how much they've pushed away, how much love slipped through their fingers. Because they confused fear with safety. So instead, they double down. They tell themselves they're strong. They tell themselves they're not the relationship type. They tell themselves they're happier alone. But at night, when no one's watching, they ache for the closeness they swore they didn't need. And here is the cruelest part. They crave the very thing they fear. They long for the very thing they run from. They need the very love they reject. This is the illusion of safety in distance. It feels like control, but it's actually chaos. It feels like protection, but it's actually pain. It feels like freedom, but it's actually chains. Because safety built on avoidance isn't safety at all. It's exile. Exile from connection. Exile from love. Exile from themselves. And until they learn the difference, they will keep mistaking running for freedom. They will keep mistaking silence for strength. They will keep mistaking withdrawal for safety. But deep down, their nervous system knows the truth. Their heart knows the truth. Their body knows the truth. That love, real love, is not the threat. The threat is the wound they've never healed. And no amount of distance will ever protect them from that truth. The cost of mistaking freedom for safety. At first, it seems harmless. They pull back a little. They delay replying. They choose silence instead of honesty. They say, "I just need space. I'm not ready." It's not you, it's me. And you believe them. Because their words sound reasonable. Because their calm exterior hides the storm inside. Because they look so convincing when they say it. But slowly, you start to notice the cracks. The way their eyes linger when they think you're not looking. The way they soften for a second, then harden again, as if caught doing something wrong. The way they pull you close with one hand, while pushing you away with the other. This is the cost, the emotional toll, the hidden tax of confusing freedom with safety. Because it doesn't just affect them, it affects you. You start to doubt yourself. You start to question your worth. You start to wonder, am I asking for too much? Am I the problem? Am I not enough? But it's not you. It's the prison they built long before you arrived. And here's the truth most people never say. Avoidants don't actually want to hurt you. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, how can I confuse them today? How can I break their heart? No, they're hurting too. But their hurt looks like indifference. Their fear looks like rejection. Their walls look like cruelty. And so the cycle begins. They withdraw to feel safe. You feel abandoned. You reach out to repair. They panic. They retreat further. You ache. Over and over again. And the cruelest part? The avoidant believes they're protecting you. Protecting you from their chaos. Protecting you from disappointment. Protecting you from a love they believe they can't sustain. But in truth, what they're protecting is their fear. fear of losing themselves, fear of being consumed, fear of needing someone so deeply that the thought of losing them feels unbearable. So distance becomes their shield. Withdrawal becomes their safety net. Coldness becomes their comfort zone. But every shield is also a barrier. Every safety net is also a trap. Every comfort zone is also a cage. And here's the cost they don't see. Their safety steals the very intimacy they crave. Their freedom keeps them chained to loneliness. Their independence leaves them dependent on running from closeness, running from vulnerability, running from love. But no matter how far they run, the ache follows, because you can't outrun your own heart. So the cost piles up. Silent nights where they replay your words in their head. Moments of regret they bury under distraction. Unsent messages that sit in their drafts. Conversations they imagine, but never have. And meanwhile, you're left holding the confusion, asking yourself questions you'll never get answers to, piecing together clues from half-finished sentences, trying to make sense of the push and pull. This is the silent destruction of love, not with fights, not with betrayal, but with absence, with distance, with walls. And the most tragic part? They don't even realize the damage they're doing. Because to them, this isn't cruelty. This isn't rejection. This isn't betrayal. To them, this is safety. But what kind of safety leaves you both broken? What kind of freedom costs you the love you secretly long for? What kind of protection feels like abandonment? This is the cost. This is the toll. This is the shadow side of confusing freedom with safety. And until they see it, until they face it, they will keep paying the price. And so will you. But here's the truth. This isn't who they really are. This isn't the love they truly want to give. This isn't the freedom they truly crave. It's just the wound speaking, the fear speaking, the past speaking. Because deep down, the avoidant doesn't want exile. They don't want isolation. They don't want to live behind glass. They want to love. They want to be held. They want to be seen. They just don't yet believe it's safe. And until that belief shifts, distance will feel like safety, even as it destroys them. The illusion of control. If there's one thing the avoidant clings to, it's control. Control of their emotions. Control of their environment. Control of how close you're allowed to get. Because to them, control feels like safety. If they decide when to text, they can't be rejected. If they decide when to open up, they can't be abandoned. If they decide how close you're allowed, they can't be hurt. At least, that's what they tell themselves. But here's the hidden truth. Control isn't freedom. It's fear wearing a mask. Fear of chaos. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the one thing they cannot predict. Another human heart. Because you can't script love. You can't rehearse intimacy. You can't control connection. Love is messy. Love is unpredictable. Love requires surrender. And for the avoidant, surrender feels like death. So they build walls instead. They ration their affection. They calculate their words. Every move becomes strategy. Every silence becomes armor. Every withdrawal becomes proof. I'm still safe. I'm still in control. But what they don't see is that the more they grip, the more they lose. Because love cannot breathe in a cage. Intimacy cannot survive on rations. Connection cannot grow in shadows. So while they think they're protecting themselves, they're actually starving the very bond they secretly long for. Here's how it looks in practice. They ignore your call, not because they don't care, but because answering feels like surrender. They avoid saying, "I love you," not because they don't feel it, but because those words feel too binding. They keep you guessing, not because they want to play games, but because certainty feels dangerous. And yet, beneath all of this control, Their body betrays them. The way their hand lingers when it brushes yours. The way their eyes soften when you laugh. The way their silence cracks when they think you might leave. Because here's the paradox. The avoidant fears losing control. But what terrifies them even more is losing you. They may not say it. They may not show it. But deep inside, they know. Their heart beats differently when you're near. So they wrestle with themselves. One part of them craves closeness. Another part demands distance. One part wants to reach. Another part wants to run. And in the middle, you're left holding fragments of both. The warm glance, followed by the cold shoulder. The late-night confession, followed by weeks of silence. The tender touch, followed by the sudden wall. This is the illusion of control. They think they're managing love. But really, love is slipping through their fingers. Because love isn't built on control. It's built on trust, on vulnerability, on the courage to be seen. And until they learn this, until they see that control is not safety, but isolation, they will keep mistaking distance for freedom. But here's the deeper layer. Control feels necessary to the avoidant. Because once, long ago, they had none. When they were children, they couldn't control if love showed up. They couldn't control if their needs were met. They couldn't control if closeness meant comfort or danger. So they learned, if I can't control them, I will control myself. I won't need too much. I won't cry too loudly. I won't depend too deeply. That way, I'll be safe. And now, as adults, that survival strategy still rules their relationships. They don't even see it for what it is. A wound. To them, it feels like wisdom. It feels like self-protection. It feels like strength. But strength that isolates isn't strength. It's fear dressed as independence. And here's the tragedy. The more they cling to control, the more love slips away. Because no one can love fully while walking on eggshells. No one can connect deeply while second-guessing every word. No one can stay forever when they're only allowed halfway in. So piece by piece, the avoidant creates the very reality they were trying to avoid. They fear abandonment, but their distance causes it. They fear rejection, but their walls invite it. They fear being unloved, but their silence ensures it. This is the cruel paradox. The tighter they hold control, the faster love unravels. And one day, something shifts. The silence grows too heavy. The loneliness grows too sharp. The absence grows too painful. And suddenly, control doesn't feel like safety anymore. It feels like loss. Loss of intimacy. Loss of connection. Loss of the one person who was willing to see through their walls. And it's in that moment that the avoidant may finally see the truth. Control never saved them. It only kept them lonely. Because real safety isn't in walls. It's in trust. It's in letting someone in. It's in discovering that love doesn't have to suffocate. It can breathe. But until they learn this, they'll keep mistaking control for strength. They'll keep mistaking distance for freedom. They'll keep mistaking silence for safety. And they'll pay for it with the very love they were too afraid to keep. What freedom really is. For the avoidant, freedom has always meant one thing. Distance. Distance from expectation. Distance from need. Distance from the weight of someone else's heart. They tell themselves, if I'm alone, I'm free. If I keep space, I'm safe. If I stay in control, I can't be hurt. And yet, why does freedom feel so empty? Why does their chest ache at night? Why do their thoughts drift back to the person they pushed away? Why does silence echo louder than any noise? Because freedom isn't the absence of love. Freedom isn't hiding from closeness. Freedom isn't silence. Freedom is the ability to love without fear, to be seen without shame, to be vulnerable without collapse. True freedom isn't running from connection. It's standing in it, fully, and still knowing you are safe. The avoidant doesn't realize the safety they're searching for in distance only lives in closeness, because only in closeness do you discover that your needs don't destroy love, that your feelings don't chase people away, that your presence is not too much. But for the avoidant, this truth is terrifying because it means risking the very thing they've always tried to control: rejection. And yet, freedom lives on the other side of that risk, not in silence, but in speaking, not in running, but in staying, not in walls, but in letting someone touch the places you swore no one would ever see. Freedom is not solitude. Freedom is security, the kind that whispers. You don't have to perform. You don't have to run. You don't have to hide. You are loved here. You are safe here. You are free here. Imagine the moment when the avoidant finally lets someone in. The mask slips. The walls soften. The fear begins to melt. They realize they don't have to choose between love and freedom, because real love doesn't take freedom away. It gives it back. Freedom to breathe deeper. Freedom to rest. Freedom to stop running. Freedom to finally beg the self they hid for so long. And here's the hardest truth of all. The avoidant may run for years. They may push love away, confusing space for safety. But one day, the loneliness catches up. And when it does, they'll see freedom without love isn't freedom at all. It's exile. But freedom with love? That's healing. That's safety. That's what they've been searching for all along. So if you love an avoidant, remember this: their withdrawal is not proof of indifference. It's proof of fear. Their silence is not the absence of love. It's the presence of wounds. And sometimes, what looks like coldness is really a cry for safety. But you cannot force them to see this. You cannot carry the weight of their healing alone. You cannot confuse patience with self-abandonment, because love cannot grow if it costs you yourself. The avoidant must one day face their truth. Freedom is not running. Freedom is resting in love. And until they do, they'll keep mistaking silence for strength, walls for wisdom, distance for freedom. But when they finally see it, when the breaking point comes, their world changes. Because for the first time, they'll know love doesn't chain them, it frees them. And maybe that's the moment they finally stop running, not because they have to, but because they want to. And that's when the avoidance story changes. From distance to closeness, from control to trust, from fear to freedom. Because freedom isn't leaving. Freedom is staying and still feeling safe. If this spoke to you, remember, healing is possible. And if you're walking this path, you don't have to do it alone. Take what you've learned, share it, let it guide you. And above all, never forget, love doesn't trap you. Love frees you.